Okay, hello everyone. I hope that you enjoyed your summer and got to do whatever it is that you wanted to do that made you happy, and found as many ways to enjoy yourself as you possibly could. Um, so this is a screencast tutorial for your extended essay. You can see that the title of the document is Extended Essay Outline and Formatting. And it's about 6 pages. You can treat this as a guidebook, essentially to kind of teach you step by step on what Mr. Nelson and I expect you to do in creating a cohesive outline that will help you write your extended essay. So this is the first year that, and this is really, I guess, somewhat thanks to quarantine and distance learning, that I've utilized the Screencastify tool, and I actually think it's going to be real helpful for us because I'll be able to post this tutorial and you can watch it as often as you'd like, refer to it, stop it, restart it whenever it's convenient for you, and use it as a true tutorial in writing your outline. So we'll start with what I've also done here is sort of created a rough format to give you a sense of what your extended essay is going to look like cut from start to finish. So I've embedded the outline part in the document, but you can see here that it starts off with the cover page for your extended essay, which is what the final extended essay is going to look like. You're going to have a cover page that has your topic, okay, and then your research question. You might ask, what's the difference between the research question and the topic? The research question is merely the topic formulated into a statement. What is your research question? That is something you should have completed. If you have not completed it, you need to do so, and you need to have a viable research question before you start outlining. So that's sort of the first step here, is to have a debatable, contestable, solid research question. It might evolve, it might get tweaked a little bit, but it needs to be pretty tight in order to write your outline and move forward. Okay, so the cover page, you'll have topic, research question, and then below you'll have your subject area. So that would be history, film, visual arts, etc. The word count, which for the extended essay needs to be under 4,000 words. And the style, the formatting style. So we generally use Chicago. That's sort of the required format that we use for Bayshore High School International Baccalaureate Program. Some students in the past have insisted on using MLA or APA, but if you are writing in the humanities, like film, visual arts, MLA is permissible if you would prefer to do so, but it's going to be up to you with your mentor, your supervisor, to make sure that it is used correctly. Okay, so I recommend Chicago. That's what you've done in all of your history HL classes, so you're familiar to do that. You're familiar with that, and that's how I will be formatting presentations, just so that we're on the same page in terms of what you can expect to see from me. So that's your cover page. All right, so the next page of your extended essay is going to be a table of contents, which will look roughly like this. Now, this is sort of a format. You'll have the table of contents. So because this is a 4,000 word essay, it's a major, definitely the most important, and probably the longest paper you will have written in high school. It's going to be broken down into chapters, and you'll see the reason for that and why that's going to be maybe easier than you would expect. But this allows you to create an organized piece of work that breaks down the paper into components so that it's easy for you to develop perspectives, analyze the material, and come to a cohesive argument by the end of the paper. So all of you will have first chapter of an introduction, which will be about 1.5 to 2 pages. The background, some topics and some subject areas generally require a background, or are able to utilize a background better or more than other subject areas. This is sort of going to be up to you and your supervisor if your topic should require a background. For example, most of the Group 3 papers, like especially history, you're probably going to need a background chapter. So keeping it real simple, if you're doing your extended essay on a historical event, let's say World War I, you're going to need to provide background information, historical context, for the reader leading up to your analysis, okay, the meat of your paper. In other cases, in other subjects, you might want to provide background to particular film that you're researching, or provide some context for works of art you might be analyzing if you're doing visual arts, background to a work of literature. So if you are in doubt as to whether or not your paper, you should pursue a background chapter, that's something for you to discuss with your supervisor, myself, and or Mr. Nelson. Chapter 3, Chapter 4 is sort of a little bit more subjective here in terms of how you can organize it. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail with what I mean by that in a few minutes when I review the outline. But Chapter 3 and Chapter 4 are where you present the different cases or the different perspectives or the different pieces of information associated with the development of your research question. So if you think of it this way, if your research question should be debatable, it should be contestable, it should present and entertain, or you could say entertain, more than one perspective or more than one idea or more than one notion. And chapters 3 and 4 are the place in your extended essay where you develop those different points of view or different approaches to answering a research question, or simply where you develop the different answers to your research question. Okay. Chapter 5 is, or a subsequent chapter after the presentation of the information related to your question, is where you sort of tease out the different aspects, where you break it down, where you break that information down and you attempt to resolve those perspectives, where you possibly arrive at an answer in which you are asserting one of those perspectives. Maybe you're asserting a combination of those perspectives. Maybe you're asserting bits and pieces of each. But it's an opportunity for you to sort of create information, to create new information, to create an argument for yourself based upon the cases or the situations or the perspectives that you presented earlier in the extended essay. And finally, Chapter 6, all papers have to have a conclusion. The strong recommendation is that you need to provide an answer to your research question that is concise, that is thoughtful, and that is consistent with the evidence presented and the information presented in the paper. Okay? So that really allows you to be able to think that early in the paper, you're presenting a research question in the introduction, all right? You're then developing different perspectives, different possible answers. You're teasing out those answers and sort of assessing the validity of each of those answers, or the strength or the weaknesses. That's really, I should have said that earlier. In chapters 3, 4, and 5, you're assessing the strength and weaknesses of the different possible answers to your research question. And then chapter 6, you are coming to a conclusion. You're answering your extended essay question. Okay, and that really makes for a very strong impression for the examiner when you have answered a research question that was presented at the beginning and that was developed throughout. And then, of course, as academic honesty and scholarly writing is one of the important aspects of this exercise and of the International Baccalaureate program, you have the bibliography. That is important for you to provide documentation of the sources that you utilized in the paper. Okay, so let's continue here. I don't want to take too much time and read every single word because I think that you can do that, but at the same time I want to make sure that you understand what we expect you to do. So this is a broad overview. This document is a broad overview of what your paper is going to look like, but it also can serve as a template. Okay, if you don't know what template means, go look it up. All right, it's something that you put down a shape and you trace around it and you use it as a model. So you use this as a model for your outline. The easiest way, and I'll provide the actual document in addition to this video on Google Classroom, the easiest way is you can make a copy of the document and then to start your outline, simply organize it in this way. Drop down, okay, what is the context for your topic? And you can type out that information, all right, and then you already have the information organized according to what Mr. Nelson and I are recommending, and you can just delete the questions, all right, or keep the questions. That's up to you, okay? But this is a way for you to develop, research, and begin writing the most important components of your extended essay in a way that is organized and will allow you to sort of immediately turn it into the actual paper. Okay, so chapter 1, as we discussed, is going to be your introduction. Your introduction is not like an introduction to Regents level essay or even a paper 2 essay. It's going to be a little bit more thorough than that. It's going to be a little bit more developed. So you're going to begin by, in a couple of sentences, thinking about these questions and answering them. What's the context for your topic? Why is your topic important? Why is it relevant? Why is there a need for research into your topic? You're sort of introducing your topic in what we would say is an academic or a thoughtful, maybe even provocative way. Okay, and then you're not required to use this statement, but you can use this phrase early on to help you sort of get your mind going. And if you want to replace it with something else or a different phrase, that's fine. But this sort of allows you to sort of prime the pump, so to speak. So you would then say, "This leads me to ask," and then you state your research question. So we kind of think of that at the end of the first paragraph. If these first 2 bullets here are the beginning part of the most of the first paragraph of your introduction, you should end the first paragraph of your introduction. And yes, your introduction is going to be more than 1 paragraph. Again, unlike a Regents-based essay or even a paper 2. You're going to end that first paragraph by saying, "This leads me to ask," and then you're going to state your research question. Your research question must be stated in your introduction. Okay, it's an important requirement. And then the next part of your introduction, which I suggest is the second paragraph of your introduction, you're going to incorporate a thorough discussion of the method you're going to use. Okay, the methodology meaning how are you going to answer your research question. All right, hence I wrote it here. How you will answer your research question. What kind of research will you be conducting to help you explore and answer your research question? Primary, secondary, scholarly books, literature reviews, film analysis, art analysis. Okay, so think, what are the sources, what are the types of sources, and what are the analytical tools? In other words, what are the tools of the discipline that you are writing your extended essay in? Okay, what are the analytical tools such as film analysis, literature analysis, art art analysis, historical analysis. Within each of those subject areas, there are specific analytical tools that you have learned in the subject area, because you obviously have taken a course in the subject area of the topic that you are writing your extended essay in. There are specific tools that you have learned to analyze material as you have studied it with your teachers in the class. Now it's your turn to use those tools to analyze the material that you're going to be researching and analyzing for your extended essay. Okay. You're then going to begin or sort of conclude the introduction by posing possible answers. All right. Your extended essay should make an argument that is tested. In other words, a claim that is challenged by other perspectives and allows you to come to a reasonable answer to your research question by the end of the extended essay. You may state this argument at the end of the introduction. In this case, the argument serves as your thesis statement. Okay? So you will essentially end your introduction with a statement of purpose. Okay? This paper will argue. All right? A central argument. I will argue. Okay? We will be able to include. Now, there's different perspectives on what sort of voice you will want to take, active, passive. I will leave that to you to discuss and resolve with your mentor. There's also different philosophies on that. But I prefer a more direct voice. It's entirely appropriate to use a first person, still, in a formal way. You don't want to be casual about it. But you should have a thesis statement, something that you will sort of seek or you'll demonstrate and argue throughout the paper, and that you will allow you to sort of refer back to. Okay, it might be an argument in which you say, you're going to argue for two different perspectives. Whatever it is, you should indicate that the paper is going to have some direction throughout the extended essay. Okay, Chapter 2. Chapter 2 is your background information. What do you want the reader to know about your topic before you present a discussion of your research question? So think of this as setting the stage for your research and exploration of your research question in the rest of the extended essay. You can also use this chapter to introduce any relevant theories or analytical tools you'll be using in your extended essay. For example, how have you learned to think about and analyze information in the subject area of your EE? So again, this is an opportunity to provide any contextual background information that is important. What does the reader need to know in order to be introduced to your topic and to become engaged with it in a way that's not going to leave the reader wanting for information? Okay. So that Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 are pretty straightforward. Sort of the meatier part of the paper, the analytical part, you're going to have two options, all right? And I fully recognize that this might be a little confusing. Okay, hopefully Chapter 1, what you need to do here in terms of an outline and developing and turning this into a paper, hopefully Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 are pretty straightforward. This is going to be just as straightforward, but basically I've articulated here, you have two options for doing this in terms of how do I analyze? A lot of students ask, how do I analyze? Okay, so I am giving you two different options to develop your outline and eventual research, your extended essay, the analytical portion of that. So option 1, all right, for the analytical or evaluation portion of your extended essay, you should think of Chapter 3, Chapter 4, Chapter 5, those middle chapters, whether it's 2 to 3 of them, okay, but chapters 3, 4, or 3, 4, 5, you should think of those as the analytical and evaluation portion of the essay. It is crucial for your extended essay to have analysis and evaluation. Okay, you must be able to entertain different perspectives, all right, competing perspectives, debatable viewpoints, and you must be able to evaluate those perspectives. In other words, come up with an answer, okay, that is defensible, that you can argue well in favor of. So explore your research question and develop your argument in one single chapter. So some students, whether it's because of their topic or their subject area or their writing style, would prefer to develop the analytical and evaluation portion in one chapter and sort of break it down into subchapters, okay? And this is how you could sort of think about doing that for the purposes of the outline and then the eventual organization of your paper. Because remember, the outline should serve as a template or as an organizational platform for your extended essay, all right? You know, a lot of people would be obviously overwhelmed. I would certainly be. 4,000 words, how am I going to do that? Well, the first way that you do that is not write a 4,000 word paper. You break it down into its relevant components: introduction, background chapter, analytical portion, conclusion. So if you think, when you set out, let's say in early October, mid-October, to write your extended essay, okay, you have the outline done. Don't think of it as, I'm going to sit down and write my extended essay. Tell your parents, tell your friends, okay, this weekend I am going to write the introduction of my extended essay. You write 2 pages, you write a page and a half. You're going to feel so much better knowing that you've set a realistic goal for yourself by completing a legitimate part of your extended essay, rather than sort of sit in front of your computer and ask yourself, where do you begin? So you need to really think of this outline tutorial as not just an assignment, but as an organizational tool to help you write your EE, okay? So one option for the analytical portion is to write it in one chapter, where you discuss the research question with one possible answer. This would be known as your central claim, a very IB word, claim. Then you discuss the research question with a different possible answer, otherwise known in some classes as your counterclaim. And then you can compare the central claim and the counterclaim, okay? We don't have to think of it as claim, counterclaim. You can just say there are 2 different claims, there are 2 different arguments, there are 2 different perspectives. I don't want us to get lost in the jargon, okay? Call it whatever you will, but you should have at least 2 different ways to answer your research question, okay? And you should be able to compare and contrast which of those ways, which of those possible answers is the better answer. And maybe you come up with a combination. Maybe you think that it's both. If it's defensible, that's fine. This section, this analytical section, is how you will do that in writing. And in giving you an opportunity here to outline it, okay? In other words, right here I've asked evidence for each of these competing claims. That allows you to go into the research and learn about that, and you would essentially use this outline as a way of taking informal notes, okay? Taking notes on the topic the way you would for any body of literature, any piece of work, any piece of writing that's been assigned to you, all right? So that's option 1. Option 2, for the analytical or evaluation portion of your essay, you can explore the research question and develop your argument into multiple chapters, okay? Where essentially you're taking these different sections that I described here and you're simply developing them into different chapters, okay? You have a chapter for one argument, you have a chapter for the different argument, all right? I'm going to say argument or position 2. Okay, argument or position 1. Okay? I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty of this. You can read this on your own, and again, this is a perfect way for you to sort of look at that bullet, okay, evidence from your reading to demonstrate one possible answer to the research question. Click a space there and say, okay, you're typing, you find that evidence, you find it, you're typing, you use that information, and it just gives you a way to organize it in a sort of a pre-made way, right? And then the last part, the analysis and resolution of both perspectives, is just taking this piece from up here, all right, comparison of central claim and counterclaim, okay, where you refute the claim or you argue in favor of the central claim. Again, you have a compare and contrast exercise right here. So essentially, you're doing the same thing. All right, option 1, option 2. For some of you, one of these might be more intuitive than the other. Maybe hopefully one is more intuitive than the other, and that's what you like. Maybe one is a little bit more conducive to your topic and your subject area. That's all going to depend upon, again, a lot of factors: your writing style, your research style, your analytical preferences. It's going to depend upon conversations you're going to have with your supervisor, and again, going back to your topic. So hopefully one of these makes sense, intuitively, and you'll feel comfortable utilizing one. Obviously, Chapter 3, if you use the option 1, is going to be a much longer chapter. That's fine. But maybe there's a simplicity about this that you like. Maybe those of you really like to be told what you do and you like something hyper-organized, maybe that's what you want to stick with option 2. Okay? I know this all looks pretty cookie cutter, but we've typically the weakest parts of students' essays are the analytical portion. Okay, we'll get into the rubric down the road in the fall a little bit, but we've seen consistently year after year, the students are getting the fewest amount of points for the analysis. And in trying to give you this suggested pathway of creating the analytical portion of your extended essay, hopefully we will, allow you to be successful in that regard. Okay, so please try this. I mean, you have to do this for the outline, and in giving you this template, I actually think it's kind of making things a little bit easier for you and hopefully a little more straightforward. So hopefully it'll work out. And that leaves us to Chapter 6, your conclusion. Your conclusion must support the reasoned argument that you developed in the previous chapter. So the previous chapter, whether it was Chapter 3 or Chapter 4, Chapter 5, at some point you will have come to an argument, and that's essentially going to be your conclusion, right? So your conclusion is just an opportunity for you to bring together your research, to restate what you've covered in your body, and to present the findings that support a clear and cohesive answer to your research question. Okay, you should be able to clearly state the conclusion of your work, how it directly relates to the research question, and is supported by the evidence that you've presented. That's really important. If you go back up here, in any subject area, any of the subject area, you have to present, present, P-R-E-S-E-N-T. You have to present evidence to support the positions, right? Some of that evidence is going to be stronger for one of those positions, okay? Everybody presents evidence for their position, okay? I have evidence that says, this study says, that study says. Well, simply, some studies are stronger than others. Some evidence is stronger than others. Some evidence can be torn apart. That's what you're doing here in Chapters 3, 4, and 5, okay? In the conclusion, you are telling the reader how you've substantiated the research question and the answer by presenting the specific evidence and why that evidence is strong enough, okay? The evidence that is stronger and is weaker is going to be compared and contrasted in the analytical portion, okay? And then you are just substantiating that claim in your conclusion, that claim that you have determined is correct, or maybe you've developed a new claim that answers your research question. But Chapter 6 is an opportunity for you to state the answer to your research question, okay? The bibliography, as I said, Chicago style. Some of you may prefer to use MLA if you're doing visual arts or an English paper. That's the only circumstance you can do MLA. I don't know if there's any dance papers this year, but the history folks and the global politics folks, you have to use Chicago. There's no debate about that. Have to use Chicago. And all of the others, I would prefer MLA, but because you might be working with supervisors who feel more comfortable with, I would prefer Chicago, but because you're working with supervisors in the humanities that might feel more comfortable with MLA, that's fine as well. But if you're comfortable with Chicago, because I know Chicago is really hammered home in HOTA and history of the Americas and History 12, then hopefully you feel comfortable with Chicago as well. It just has to be done correctly, which I know you have been taught thoroughly by Mr. Sineski, and you'll be reviewed it by Ms. Marpergo. So that being said, everyone should be able to be on the same page and do that, utilize Chicago appropriately. Okay, any sources you footnoted or cited parenthetically need to be in your bibliography. that about concludes it. I didn't have to do any multiple takes on this. Probably could have, but I have 2 little kids, so I don't really have the time to do multiple takes. So hopefully this was good. Hopefully you're still watching. Hopefully this it will be beneficial, and I am of course here to help. I'm going to create this as a video and post it before school begins, so that you will have something to get you right in there into outlining if you haven't ventured into doing that already over the summer. And Mr. Nelson and I will make a date, likely in the middle or end of September, for your outlines to be due to your supervisor and to Google Classroom for the Extended Essay page. So if you have any questions, obviously email me and keep in touch. And thank you for being awesome. And we're going to get through this step by step.